I've already mentioned the driving question of that one to you. Because MD, but I had them right there, because what is MD? They were dying to figure it out, and it took them a couple days. But we also demonstrated the product, so that's what they made. So they made their own of that, and they had a lot of fun with that part of it. So you can make your own, give an example of the final product sometimes. And did you see all the content that was in there? So for that one, we didn't do an entry doc, we just did that. And now let's go to needs to knows. What didn't you understand from that? Go watch it again if you need to. And there's lots of things in there that they needed to know. And guess what? Those are all my standards that I needed covered. So that's kind of how, hopefully I'm starting to address part of this right here, the Common Core, is you embed it into those entry docs and into your activities. At this time, why don't you pull open your project planner overview and just going through where I hope you are, but you might not be there, which is okay too, depending on how much structure you came in here with probably last week of an idea. Hopefully you have your project idea done and your content standards. Hopefully you have our content, our driving question. We didn't really spend a lot of time on problem statements, and that's because it's hard to write your problem statement until after you have your audience and your product. So we've done audience and product now, so you might want to go back if you haven't done a problem statement and write one, because that's good to give students a couple days in. What tends to happen is we do all this needs to know sometimes, and sometimes they're into the content, they're into the questions, and they forget about what are we actually doing. And so then you'll notice a couple days later they'll be like, okay, I know we're learning about Cold War, but what are we really doing again, Mr. Keckley? And that's we pull out the problem statement and give them that, and that helps them see the task and the audience. Enduring understanding, hopefully you have done, and the products down here in your audience, hopefully you have done. Group and individual, and the individual is probably going to be that writing piece. And then we're to entry event. So we want to start the inquiry, we want to engage students, we want to do something with a little pizzazz. So I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to work on thinking, figuring about an entry event, and also go back and fill in anything on this paper that you need to. If you're missing some of the other things, problem statement. If you're done early, hopefully remember you still have this PBL resources, you can go look through those. And the other thing I'm going to suggest you start working on is this chart right here. Because this is where most teachers need the structure. So again, kind of getting back to maybe the best practices here part. This is where you're going to create activities that meet their needs to knows, but this is also where, how do I explain this? So yesterday when we started with communism, that question kind of came up, but we realized, we talked to a couple students about the difference between Russian communism and the philosophy of communism, how they're not the same. Everybody needs to know this. So today, my teaching partner, we developed a workshop yesterday afternoon that he gave to the students, where he basically makes a T-chart and explains the difference of communism is kind of both a government and economic, where we have democracy and capitalism, and they're more separated. Communism kind of gets mixed in there. And so he made a chart so he can show and explain and talk about then how the communism and government leads to dictatorships in practical real life. So that's where you design these workshops to make sure you hit all the things that are missing. And then, just like yesterday, sometimes you design them on the fly based on your expertise. And this is also where you would add a workshop for, say, you know if they're writing a paper, they're going to need a workshop on MLA citation. That's a fact. But here's the difference, I guess, between workshops and, hey, today guys I'm going to teach you about MLA citation. And this is really key. You don't do it until the students are ready. So sometimes we give the students a task that we know that they can't do without some help, and we let them flounder for about 10 minutes until they're starting to get stuck. And then guess what? Hey guys, who needs a workshop on this? I'm lost. I do. Come over here to this table over here. I'm going to do a workshop. It's only going to be 10 minutes, so I'm not going to waste all your work time here. And I'm going to help you do this. And then the students who need it come over and do it. And then the students who need it don't come over and do it and ask me 5 minutes later, why don't you go to the workshop? So I'm trying to teach them next time, go to the workshop. I just did a workshop on that. Why didn't you come to the workshop? So, and sometimes they're voluntary, sometimes they're whole class and mandatory. Sometimes they're, I went through your papers and you need to come to a workshop on capitalization because this is a skill you lack. So sometimes they're mandatory based on skills that you see that a certain group of students need. Why would we teach every student how to capitalize when it's only 5 students in the class that are having this problem? And what it looks like for you is, it's this table in the back room. The rest of the class is working on their stuff. Because unlike myself, you probably don't have a team teacher. You're still in the room. You just pull these kids over to this separate area and do a little mini workshop while the rest of the students are working on their major project. So we try to do them when students need them. And so MLA, just to give you our personal opinion on MLA citation, is like the day before the paper's due. We pull up an example of MLA citation. Everybody pull up your paper. Look at your citation. Does it look like this? No. All right, come to the workshop. If we do it sooner, they don't come, they don't listen, they don't pay attention, and it's still terrible. If we wait till now they think they're done, and they have their work MLA citation done, and they think it's right, we just throw an example up on the board of the proper one and say, does it look like this? No. All right, come to the workshop. So when you do it when they're ready, then they'll listen. If you just say, okay, I'm going to do this today, we all know he's on this out. So work on figuring out the nuts and bones of your class if you have your entry event done. Otherwise, come up with that.